What's up guys, I'm Joel Dodge, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about what I think are the 3 best iOS apps for your guitar effects. And I'm going to talk about some of the strengths and weaknesses of each one. Let's get into it. My goal with this video is not to show you a bunch of sound demos to help you find which one sounds the best. I'll share my thoughts on which one I think does sound the best and kind of rank them. But the app wouldn't have made this video if I didn't think it sounded good enough to be your all-in-one guitar effects unit. So I wanted to start out by saying that I want to help you find the guitar effects app that's going to meet your needs as a guitar player. Alright, so the first app we're going to talk about is Bias Effects, and Bias Effects definitely doesn't need any elaborate introduction on my channel. I've covered it pretty extensively. If you're interested in learning more about Bias Effects 1 or Bias Effects 2, you can go check out some of my other videos. But some of the things that I wanted to highlight as key features of whether Bias Effects is the best option for you is, first off, I do think Bias Effects is the easiest one to use out of all these apps. They've laid it out in a very simple, kind of intuitive way where it's easy to control things. All the knobs that you see on pedals or amps, you can just simply put your finger on them, move up and down, and it's going to control that knob. The other thing that makes Bias Effects really easy to use is that they've made all the effects and amps look like their real-world counterparts. So what I mean by that is if it's a Vox amp simulation, it's going to look like a Vox amp. And the title is going to be something that implies that it's a Vox amp. And as a guitar player who's very familiar with all the real effects that are out there, it does make it a lot easier to navigate when you look at the graphic in the title and you know exactly what that thing is going to sound like before you even turn it on. And the reason I wanted to highlight this is that with Overloud through, they don't do as good of a job with this, and a lot of the effects and amps I had to actually try out to know what they sound like. The second thing that I really like about Bias Effects 2 is I think they offer what is probably the most bang for your buck when it comes to buying a pack of effects. So with the professional package deal that comes with Bias Effects, I feel like I'm saying it wrong. I don't know. I guess it's not called package. I forget what they call it. But that bundle, the professional one, comes with the IR loader. It doesn't come with the HD rack effects, and it doesn't come with all the guitar matches. But personally, I don't think those are like essential things when using Bias Effects. I find that I'm cool with most of the regular like pedal effects that come with it for delay and reverb, and that the rack effects aren't that much of an improvement. And personally, I never really used the guitar match feature, so unless you really want those features, I think that the professional bundle will definitely have all your bases covered. The third thing that I like about Bias Effects is that it's really easy to use in live situations. And that's mainly because they've included tap tempo and that you can save the beats per minute with each patch. So if you wanted to save a patch for each song that you're doing in a set list, you could set those beats per minute previously and then just be able to flip through those patches as you're playing through the songs. And this is the only app that offers this feature, which is why I think Bias Effects is the best for live performances. The two things that I don't like as much about Bias Effects is, first off, I don't like the tone quality that you get out of it as much as I like these other two apps. And it's mainly because with Bias Effects, I've just found that it seems to emphasize the high frequencies. And I don't know exactly what it is. It must be just something about the algorithm with these effects. And that's not to say that Bias Effects doesn't sound good. I just don't like how it has this natural tendency to emphasize the high frequencies. The other thing that I don't like as much about Bias Effects is that it only offers inter-app audio. And I don't want to get too in-depth into the differences between inter-app audio and AUV3. But in a nutshell, Inter-app audio is just much more limited. It only allows you to run one instance of bias effects in your project at a time, which means that bias effects is a much more limited studio setup than these other two apps that I'm going to talk about. So the next app I want to talk about is Overloud Through. And first off, I don't think that Overloud Through is as easy to use as bias effects. They've kind of laid it out in this weird way where all the controls for the effect that you're using is on the side of the screen. It's kind of jarring for me, to be honest. When I can't tell you how many times I just reach for the amp or the pedal to try to change the volume or the tone. And then I remember I have to go to the side of the screen and control it with the little bar. It's not terrible, and once you've kind of set up your patches, it's not as big of a deal, because that's definitely the way I work, is I set up patches and I just kind of use those when I play. But all that being said, it's not as user-friendly as bias effects is. The other thing that I don't like as much about Overloud Through is that it is kind of expensive, and I don't think that they offer the best packs. If you were to buy one of these packs, I think that very few of them actually have everything that you would want to be able to use. So to me, it is a little disappointing that they don't offer some better pack options for people that don't want to buy all the effects that they have to offer. The third thing, and I'm sorry to be starting off with all these negatives with Overloud Through, or like starting off with all the great stuff with bias effects, but it's gonna switch. It's gonna switch. There's good stuff at the end about Overloud Through. The other thing that I don't like about Overloud Through is they haven't really set it up to play live, because they don't offer tap tempo and they don't offer saving the beats per minute with the patch. So this definitely limits your ability to use Overloud Through for live performances. But finally, we're gonna get to the positives of Overloud Through, and that's, first off, I do think it sounds better than bias effects. I think that just in general, it sounds more realistic. It doesn't have that emphasis on the high frequencies like I was talking about in bias effects. And also, I think the delays and reverbs in Overloud Through sound better. If you've watched my previous videos on bias effects, that's something I've always felt like bias effects is kind of limited on, is how good the delays and reverb sound. So Overloud Through definitely takes those up, and I think just in general does sound better as an overall guitar effects unit. Something else that's a really cool feature that I'm excited about is that Overloud Through allows you to share patches as files. So that's actually something I'm going to be working on for the next couple weeks, is making some patches in Overloud Through that I'll be able to share with you guys. So the last thing that's really cool about Overloud Through is that it offers AUV3, which means that you can load multiple instances of this app into a project and have individual controls for each track, so that you can have one guitar that has a lot of distortion and another one that has delay and reverb and one that's clean. You could set it up however you want, which is why I think that Overloud Through is the best home studio solution out of these three apps. The last app that I wanted to talk about is the Nembrini Guitar Effects, and this is the most unique app out of these three that I'm talking about. First off, it's not an all-in-one unit. So with Nembrini, you go on the App Store and you can buy each effect that they offer as a standalone unit. So they offer a bunch of different guitar amps, a handful of different guitar effects. Something that's really cool is they offer a handful of overdrive pedals that are completely free, so you should definitely go check those out. They have a Tube Screamer clone, a Klon clone, and a Rat clone that are all free, so you should definitely go check those out. And those 3 pedals sound great. I think the Tube Screamer is actually one of the best Tube Screamers that I've ever used, and that's not just in simulations, that's just in period. It's a really good sounding Tube Screamer. But all that being said, I do think that Nembrini offers the best tone quality out of all these apps that I've talked about. And the other thing is that if you do want to use AUM to structure your guitar patches or something like that, it's a lot easier to do with Nembrini, because instead of loading something like Bias Effects into it that has a bunch of different effects going on, you can see exactly what effect it is when you're looking at it in AUM. So to kind of wrap all this up and to give you a brief summary of everything I said to just kind of make it simpler, is that I think that Bias Effects is the best option if you're trying to play live. I think that Overloud Through is the best all-in-one home studio recording setup. And I think that the Nembrini guitar effects alongside AUM are the best if you are just wanting to get the best tone possible and you really enjoy tweaking things and you like being able to move things around. That's going to be the best setup for you. If you're interested in the Overloud Through presets that I'm making, just keep an eye on the channel. I should be making those within the next couple weeks, and you'd be able to purchase them on my website, which will also be up in the next couple weeks. It's not currently up right now. But just be watching out for that. If you do end up getting the Overloud Through effects, I'll be making some presets for that. But as always, die empty. I'll catch you in the next one. So today, guys, I'm gonna be showing you how to beatbox. See, it's all in that sound. Like, if you can't do that, you're never gonna be a good beatboxer, okay? This is where it's at. That was good. That was good. Yeah. That was a good one. Man, how long has this been recording? Bro, if somebody can make a camera that the audio jack doesn't block the frickin' screen, frick! It's hard to get good takes out here, man. It's hard to get good takes, you know what I'm saying?